Hey guys, welcome back to Library Says. My name is Jamie, and today I'm giving you my list of books you absolutely have to listen to. Now, I know not everybody is an audiobook fan. Perhaps you physically like reading with your eyeballs, and I can't blame you for that. I love reading too, and I understand if you find your mind wandering, if you just can't get into audiobooks the same way you can physical books. But if you're willing to give these a chance, these are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the ones that I highly recommend you check out, even as a reread as audiobooks. For each of these titles, I'm going to give you its author and its narrator, but then also I'm going to tell you where to look for it. So I checked all of these titles on Audible, on Scribd, and then on my library card for Libby and Hoopla. If you have access to either of those, your digital collections for your library are going to be different from mine, so I can't guarantee that they're available for you, but maybe some of the ones that aren't available for me are available for you. So definitely take a look before you purchase any of these. Now, I am sitting next to an open window, just a heads up, because it was so gloomy yesterday and we're still in self-isolation. And so it's beautiful today and I have the window open, which means you're probably hearing some bird noises. You might hear some cars. I apologize in advance, but it must be done. Now, number one on this list is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I'm not the first one to say that you should listen to this audiobook. It's narrated by Will Wheaton of sci-fi fame, and funnily enough, Will Wheaton is actually a very minor character in this book, which is sort of funny and trippy. His voice has so much character, and he puts so much emotion and so much acting into the book. You are just so absorbed. The world is there. It honestly, in my brain, my memories of listening to the audiobook for this are like my memories of watching a movie. It's so visceral and vivid, and I just felt every moment and I experienced every moment. This is the first audiobook that I ever listened to that I finished the last several hours lying around staring at the ceiling. Like, just couldn't be bothered to do anything else. Had no interest in doing anything but lying there and listening to this audiobook. This is, of course, available on Audible. I was also able to find the audiobook version of this title on my Libby and Hoopla accounts. Next up on my list is a controversial pick in that I know a lot of people feel exactly the opposite way from me. But I'm going to include it anyway because for me, this is one of the most incredible audiobooks I've ever listened to, and that was The Illuminae Files by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I also have the physical book, obviously, for this, and you might be thinking, if you've read this or seen it, why in the world would I listen to it? Don't you miss something? Because if you haven't read it, it is told in transcripts, images like that, there are maps, it's texting, it's art, and how in the world can you convey that via audiobook? You just can? I feel like I don't have a good explanation for this, except that you just need to try it. It's done with a full cast. There are sound effects. There are special effects. I feel like this should have won an award, and it's possible that it did. It takes the audiobook format to another level. It is completely immersive, and if you want to have the physical book and listen to the audiobook, I think that is the top-notch way to do it, which is why I own both formats, so I can listen and I can look at the imagery. But if you're gonna do one or the other, not only is this an incredible audiobook, but I would recommend this for road trips or some kind of travel where you need to have an audiobook and you're doing something else. Because it is so immersive, you're never gonna get bored listening to the Illuminae books. Obviously, you can purchase this on Audible, but I also found it on my Libby account. Next up is A Discovery of Witches. This is the first book in the All Souls trilogy. I would recommend all three of them on audio. They're written by Deborah Harkness, narrated by Jennifer Ikeda, and Jennifer Ikeda's narration is top-notch. She's one of the best of the best. This book has multiple accents, multiple languages, men and women. We travel all over the world. We travel in time. So she has quite the load on her. She has so many voices, so many accents. She has to differentiate between so many different characters. In any given scene, there might be 10 or 12 characters, and I never for 1 second was confused about who was talking, which I think she gets all the gold stars. So impressive. Unfortunately, the only place I could find the audiobooks for these books was Audible, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't have access to them on Libby, so I would still go look. Next up is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, narrated by Daniel Sharman. And you might say, you mean the entire Infernal Devices trilogy? No, I do not. No. Books 1 and 2 in this trilogy are narrated by different people. They swap it up in between each book for some reason. Very frustrating as a listener. But if you're gonna listen to any of them, I so recommend you listen to this third one, narrated by Daniel Sharma. He is Will for me. His voice is beautiful. And his Welsh accent for Will is why I've decided I must marry a Welshman. Anytime I hear someone speak with a Welsh accent on TV, in real life, whatever, I immediately am just right back into this book. I don't think I would love Will as much as I do without Daniel Sharman's narration. Of course, you can find this on Audible. I also found it on Scribd, and I found this on Libby. Okay, next up on the list is Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. And I have a bit of a caveat for this. I'm not saying you should only listen to Jane Austen. Not at all. My first several times rereading any of her books, I read physical copies of her books. But if you are going in for a reread, maybe you want to try something different, or if maybe you've had trouble getting into classics in the past and think maybe an audiobook would help you get there. This is my preferred version. It is narrated by Rosamund Pike. It's just Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. Those are the only two as far as I know that she's done, but she is great. She has voices for every single character, men and women. She differentiates really well. Sometimes women doing men's voices and men doing women's voices in audio is cringy. She was great. I was so impressed because I like her as an actress. Obviously, she was in Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, my preferred version, but it was incredible. I really was surprised that not only is she a great actress, she's also a great narrator. Now, the problem with this is it is an Audible original, both of them, Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. So you have to have Audible to get them. I do, however, think it's worth it if you are an Audible user. The best part is if you're an Audible user and you have Audible Escapes, formerly known as the Romance Package, where you pay, I believe it's $6.99 a month extra on top of your Audible account for free unlimited romance audiobooks from a huge selection. These are included in Escapes. You can get them for free as part of your package if you're already a subscriber. All right, and then we have the Themis Files series by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a trilogy that consists of Sleeping Giants, Waking Gods, and Only Human. It is narrated by a full cast. This is another one in the vein of like Illuminae, where there's sound effects and special effects, but also it's formatted similarly in that it's transcripts and interviews and files that are being read, and it is just so immersive in the audio format. I powered through the first two of these books in 24 hours, and then I of course had to wait however long until the third book came out, which was torture. Of course available on Audible, and I also found it on Libby. The next book on my list was one of my favorite books I read last year, 2019. It's because of the audiobook. This is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know a lot of people have said something similar in that the audiobook made this book. It's like it was written for this format. I don't think I would have loved it if I had read the physical book. And that is saying something. I'm usually someone who, it doesn't matter the format. Like, I think certain formats are the best version, but it doesn't matter. I could still love it no matter what. Not this one, I don't think. Oh, is that cringy to say? I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna stand by that opinion that this is the only way you should read Daisy Jones and the Six. Each character in this story gets its own narrator, and you become attached. When this book finished, I felt I knew each character on a personal level. I'm very excited for the TV adaptation that is currently in pre-production. However, the actors will not be the voice actors from the audiobook, and so they're not exactly right for me. Which is dumb, I realize. But I'm so in love with these characters. The audiobook is responsible for that. So if you're going to read this one, please, please, please listen to the audio. It is, of course, again, available on Audible, and I also was able to find it on Libby. All right, and then the last title on my list is extraordinarily controversial. It's The Martian by Andy Weir. I know you're thinking, what's controversial about that? My controversial opinion is in the narrator, R.C. Bray. Now, if you're to go look at Audible right now and try and find this book, you will not be able to find it. You'll find The Martian, narrated by Will Wheaton, who, as previously established, I love. His narration for Ready Player One, top notch. However, I originally listened to the audiobook for The Martian when it was first recorded from Podium Books by R.C. Bray. Due to money issues and contract issues, Audible ended up getting the rights for that audiobook and having to re-record it, and so Will Wheaton re-recorded it, and I'm sure it's phenomenal. R.C. Bray is Mark Watney for me. Just embodies that character. The snarky humor and the self-deprecation, just perfect. It's another one where I could just sit there and stare at the wall all day and listen to his narration and just crack up laughing, considering it's a book about a man left behind, all alone, desolate on Mars. You'd think that would be an upsetting read, but R.C. Bray's Mark Watney just chef's kiss. The unfortunate thing about this is that if you try and find this audiobook, you will probably fail. On Audible, they only now have Will Wheaton's version, and as far as I have been able to find, you can't purchase the R.C. Bray version anywhere anymore. So maybe if you look at your Libby/Overdrive from your library, it owns the original audiobook version. Mine did not, so I don't know what to tell you. And of course, I could never tell you to go find this somewhere on the internet. But it had to be included on my list because it is one of my favorite audiobooks of all time, and this list would not be complete without it. So good luck, my friend. And that's it. That's all of my favorite audiobooks, the must-listens of audiobookdom. You'll have to tell me what you think. Have you listened to any of these? Have you read any of these? And you maybe disagree? Maybe the physical book is better, is the version. I know it's so subjective, and person-to-person opinions differ so widely on something like this, but if you do check out any of these audiobooks and you love them, I can't wait to hear about it. As always, my links to Goodreads and Twitter are down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!